Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm your host, Hayleigh Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcasting agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. I am loving this time of year because people are coming to me to get their podcast started. It has been on your vision board all year and you're finally taking the action to make it happen. I just have so much fun helping people start their podcasts. It brings me so much joy, and it really is fun to see people, especially this time of year, start it, and then we'll see where they are in a year from now. And all the time what I hear is, oh my gosh, I wish I started earlier. This is amazing. If you are looking to start your podcast in 2024, let's connect. You can come find me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production. I'm also now on TikTok, Espresso Pod Production. Unfortunately, my business name is too long for TikTok, but I share so many tips on there. And then that's also where you can reach out to me so we can get started on the podcast of your dreams. Okay, now let's get into this episode. So today my guest is Alyssa Williamson. She is a 2-time successful business founder, business coach and mentor, brand consultant, and marketing strategist. She supports female business owners in scaling their business with ease so they can increase their monthly revenue while loving their work and living their own version of freedom, fun, and luxury. My favorite part of this episode is this phrase that she brought up that says, what is the best that can happen? I think that a lot of times in business, we think about the worst that can happen. Even in life, we think about what the worst can happen is. But she talks about why having this what's the best that can happen mentality really helps us in life and business. Because going from a negative mindset to a positive mindset can truly shift your entire life. We also get into tactical parts of starting a business. Like I mentioned, she has started 3 businesses, so she has so much advice from different industries. And we also talk about trusting your intuition and how that directly relates to your business, your revenue, your income. All of these things tie back to intuition and how, like, we know what we're supposed to do. Let's just do it. So in her business, she talks about how she focuses on mindset and intuition, marketing and business systems, and high performance habits. So there's a lot in this episode about running a business that feels good to you. And I think that especially this time of year, we can be hustling a lot, trying to get those last dollars in, but it's also a time to hopefully spend with family and loved ones. So finding that balance is very important. I thought that this was a great episode for right now. So if you want to connect with me or Alyssa, all of our links are in the show notes. And like I mentioned at the start of this episode, if you want to get your podcast started, let's do it. This is the time of year. I am so excited. All right, let's get right into this episode. Hey, Alyssa, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Hey, Hayleigh, thank you. Yeah, we were just chatting and there's some really great stories that I hope will inspire the audience too.
Yeah, absolutely. We both started a business young relatively, right? And so I'm sure we'll hit on a lot of pain points of a lot of other women who are starting their business in their early mid-20s. So I'm excited to get into this. So if you want to start off by telling us about like who you are and your journey from when you were an employee to becoming a boss and what you do now, that'd be amazing.
Sure. So I can now say I've run 3 businesses, 2 which I started from scratch. But my first job was right out of college. I did graphic design was my degree. So I went into an art department at a print shop. And my experience was just so terrible that I was like, I will never be pretty much it taught me what not to be in a boss. And so I went to school in New Zealand. When I moved back to California, back home, it was May of 2009. No one was hiring. I know this is a common problem now. I see it all the time. People are saying no one's hiring. And so I just started getting clients and I built up my business from word of mouth. And I built my design and marketing business By the second year, I had 10K months. I had some shifts and adjustments that I had to learn from that we'll probably talk about. Got to nearly $250,000 a year in business. And then I decided that I'd fulfilled what I needed in that business. And I moved into business and mindset coaching because I love working directly with the business owner to help shift that mindset and shift the way that they show up in their business.
That's awesome. And congrats on all three of those businesses. I think that's really cool that you have tried so many different things and then realized what actually spoke to you. And so that's a big part of kind of what I want to talk about today of like, there's so many things that you could do, but there's a lot that holds you back in your mindset where you're like, well, maybe this won't work, or maybe I should just stay in my corporate job, or maybe the consistent paycheck is what I need. And since you work with a lot of people for mindsets, do you have any tips on how to like overcome that?
And that is a real fear, especially when you're first switching. You're like, hey, I've got the steady income. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, I've got health insurance. And now I have to pay for my own health insurance and things like that. But one, it's knowing your business. So how you set up your business, being strategic. You can't just be like, I'm going to open up my doors and have a business. It doesn't work that way. It's being strategic. It's having your marketing in place, having your systems in place. So part of it is sometimes you're building it on the side for a little while, getting to know your ideal audience. Most business owners, you think you know your ideal audience, but till you work with them, you don't really know who is your niche and who you best resonate with and who you create the best results for. And I'm all about creating a business for your ideal clients that you're the best one to create the best results for them. So part of it's business strategy. And then the mindset is knowing that it's completely different. It is a comfort zone thing. I'm lucky. My family is a family of entrepreneurs and consultants. So for me, being an employee was actually weird, but I know it's a completely different mindset shift, being told what to do, where to go, to you have to figure it all out on your own.
Yeah.
So knowing that there's going to be fear and challenges too.
Yeah. And one of the things that I saw on your website that really resonated with me was, what's the best that could happen? I know a lot of us think about like, what's the worst that could happen, or thinking about it from like, oh, not for me, whatever. But what's the best that can happen? That's like looking at all of these amazing things. Tell me a little bit about like why that's a big part of your marketing and your story.
That's my motto too. That's how I try to live my life. And so it comes down to, again, it's a mindset thing, is do you want to focus on the positive or do you want to focus on the negative? If an opportunity comes up and I'm like, ooh, this could lead to this amazing thing and that amazing thing, and it elevates my energy, it elevates my excitement, I get creative, I get inspired. Or I could be like, oh, here's this big opportunity, but you know what? What if it goes wrong? Or what if I invest all this time and I fail? And like, that just brings you down. You're already setting yourself up for failure when you do that. So I work with the clients as well on going from that positive to negative mindset. I had one client, she told me before we met, she's like, I'm proud of having a negative mindset. I always look for the worst in things.
Okay.
And after just a couple months working together, we shifted that. And she's like, it's so much better when I have a positive mindset. Look at like all these wins and things that are turning out my way. And so it's a bit of that law of attraction, but it is the energy that you put out there. If you're negative about everything, you're the downer, the things aren't going to go your way. Whereas if you're positive and excited, you can sort of brush off the negative because you're focusing on the positive.
Yeah. I heard someone talk about this sentence last week and I've been thinking about it all week. And it's, why is this happening for me? Not to me, for me. So if you lose a client, why is this happening for me? Maybe a better one is coming in. So thinking about it in that way, just after a week of doing that, I'm like, wow, I get why all these people are so into healthy mindset, because it really does make a big difference.
Yeah, you could get caught up in the, oh, I've lost a client. I now celebrate with my clients when they say no to non-ideal clients, or they lose someone that's like, oh, I really didn't like working with them anyway. And now they've created space for that new ideal client. So yes, if you have to, sometimes you have to sit and make a list. Okay, this seems really bad. What are the things that happened for me? How could this change that?
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually change your past experiences that way too, the way you think of things that happen to you, by looking at what they did for you.
Oh, there's a lot of power in that, I feel. Going
Yeah.
from that victim mindset to this is happening all for a reason. I guess I haven't thought about that. That you really can change the way you think about things from the past.
And the thing about mindset work is that it is simple, but it takes time. It's sort of like people know to journal, but how many people actually journal every day and do that inner work? You have to spend the time on it. So the mindset part is, okay, what's holding me back? What is, like, maybe something happened to you in your last business or in a job, and now you're afraid to take action because of that. Sit down and journal about that past experience and be like, what has this taught me? What have I learned from it? How have I grown?
Yeah, absolutely. So that goes into kind of what I wanted to ask you about of the tactical parts about starting your businesses. How did you get started and grow in them? And what did you learn from the first to the second and the second to the third?
It was interesting because my first business I started, like, I had clients in college. So it was right out of college, 21, 22. And then my coaching business I started in 2019. And even though I'd spent 10, 11 years helping businesses with their marketing and branding, to go through that process myself again, I was like, oh yeah, I've got to build a reputation. I've got to speak to my ideal clients. I got to see who I'm connecting with. It was an eye opener again of, oh yes, I've been through this before, but here's what it's like. So the tactical pieces of starting a business is, I always say, know your niche so that you can be the best one to serve them. Don't try and serve everyone, but be the one that you're the no-brainer. You're the one that's going to help them because you are so focused and targeted on them. And that does take a little bit of research, but finding that need, and you need to be active and consistent. So building your business, if you're not comfortable, if you like, you can be doing it on the side. I don't believe in the hustle culture. I don't believe that you have to work all these hours, but there are phases where you have to be like, okay, I've got a job and I'm building this business. It's going to be 3 months, 6 months that I know I have to go through this sprint, and then I'm going to change it. So having a timeline as well for what does this look like? Is it going to be something you build up slowly on the side? Do you know it's going to take a year or two because you don't have the time, you don't have the bandwidth or the capacity? Or is it something where you're like, I want this now. I'm just going to devote the next 3 months hardcore to this, that I can make the transition.
Yeah, there's no one straight way to start a business. And so it is nice to be able to think about all the different ways. Like, I work in podcasting, and I talk about this a lot recently of like, you have to decide when is the right time to start for you. Do you have the money to outsource it? Do you have the time to do it yourself? What is your goals for it? So it's the same with business of like, can you do it on your own? There's a lot of stuff that you actually have to learn before starting a business that you can learn during the process. So do you have any like key takeaways or like common things that you've seen in starting different businesses?
I think the biggest one, it really comes down to confidence. I know that's not a tactical thing, but when you're confident, you'll speak you'll speak strongly, you'll have the pricing that matches your value. A lot of business owners I see price really low, and there's a time where you're getting experience. Maybe you don't have a lot of experience, so yes, you're going to price low, but you have to know when to increase your prices and when to say no to clients, and having that confidence. And that's the biggest thing I notice is they'll take on non-ideal clients because they want the money or they need the money. So it's coming from a fear basis again, and not really standing in their power of what they can own. And it's hard when you don't have client testimonials or proof or results, but just knowing that your expertise can help them, standing in that power.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, okay, if I don't trust myself yet, what can I do to trust it? And knowing that you are going to have fear and that you are going to lack in confidence. And the only way to get confidence is to gain experience.
That's very true. That's very true. You talk about this on your website and in your social media too. And you also tie this into like trusting your intuition, which I think as women, we have great intuition, but I know I don't always listen to it. And then it bites me after that. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God. And I know before we got on this call, you were talking about how there's times where you didn't listen to your intuition either. How does intuition play into business?
So intuition is actually a large part, as a piece of what I feel is foundational to being a business owner now. So when I work with clients, I work with mindset and intuition, marketing and business systems, and then high performance habits. So those are like my 3 pillars. And the reason is your intuition gives you a lot of insight to information that your brain isn't processing. Subconsciously, you're picking up on it. And I say I had quarter life crises because I was very much a high achiever, type A, workaholic. Like, I don't have I have thought, I'm like, I don't have time for that. I've just got to get through this client list, working my 80-hour weeks. And some of the biggest changes in my life, I had quarter life crises. It sounds simple, but I bought my 2014 Ford Mustang. I was not happy at that time in my life. Like, I'd had great success and everything had plateaued. And I was just like, one day I was like, I'm going to go buy a Mustang. I did look around and I did shop around, but I didn't try any other cars. I just bought that Mustang, and that is my favorite thing ever. And you might be like, okay, well, how does that have to do with anything? But it was that happiness and that peace and that it's made me grow in other ways and other skills. I never thought I was going to be a business coach. I was always like, I'm doing personal development for my own purposes. And when I moved, so I'm actually originally from the Bay Area, and then I moved up to Oregon. And when I moved to Oregon, I started, you just get those messages over and over again. And like I was also a Mary Kay consultant. A lot of them is listen to your intuition. What does your intuition say? And I was like, okay, I know this intuition thing's important, but I haven't been listening. And then I came across an intuitive success coach. And we'd never really connected. And finally, one day we had a meeting, and I was like, I have to work with you. Like, she wasn't like, we were just having a one-to-one. And I was like, I need to work with you. After that year of coaching with her, I was like, this is what I need to do. I need to help the old me, the workaholic, 80-hour work week, business is taking over your life, Alyssa, become this new Alyssa who listens to her intuition, has income from multiple sources, has time in her day, finishes her day by 3 or 4 in the afternoon, travels. Like, I was like, now I get it. I've lived it. And now I see this is what I need to do. But I didn't know that, but my intuition led me there.
Yeah.
Took me in all the steps along the way.
Right. And you had to go through all of that pain to actually get this beautiful business with balance now. So I think that for anyone who is kind of in that workaholic mindset, which I know I've been in that different times in my life, trying to grow my business, scale it really fast, or all or nothing type of mentality, it definitely comes and goes. And so I think that's a big part of it.
And especially when you're first starting out too.
Yeah.
And I think everything I learned, I can now relate to my clients, and I can now help my clients. That's why I'm like, I'm a business coach and a mentor, because I've had a business. I've been through all the challenges. I've hired employees. I've decided not to have employees. Like, I'm all about, here's the certain processes that work, but let's pick and choose what works best for you. So I've got a proven system, but then I'm like, how do we make your dream life happen? And what do you need of these pieces to make that happen?
I like that. And so when someone comes to work with you and they're like, I have like, because I'm sure you can relate to them in this sense too, where you said you were hitting consistent like 10K months consistently, but you were also working like 80 hours a week. So when someone comes to you with that type of situation, or even when you were going through that, how do you help them, and how did you help yourself?
So the first thing is always going back to, what is your goal? I like to say that I'm a business coach who helps clients find their lifestyle goals. It's not about the money. The reason I was working 80-hour weeks is because I set my goal at 10K months. And so I was just chasing the money, but I lost my life. Couldn't spend time with family or friends. So I always say, what does your ideal lifestyle look like first? Because then we have an end marker. This is what we want to work towards. And then we're like, okay, well, this is where your business is now, or this is where what you're working on now.
Yeah.
And then I can look at them and look at, how's your marketing? Who's your ideal client? How's your business set up? How's your pricing? How's your structure? Are you optimizing your time or are you wasting your day? That's where habits come in too. Like, are you answering other people's emergencies by answering your emails first in the day, or are you doing your important activities? So it's really, I have to look at their business hands-on, but then I can be like, here's the things that we're going to walk through. But I take them through a curriculum as well. So they still walk through the process of getting connected to where they want to be, what their life looks like, what their business looks like. You get to craft your business. You don't have to make it what someone else has done.
Yeah, this is a big question I'm about to ask, but if you were to start your business over knowing these things, kind of what would you change and what would you do the same?
So I would definitely be business coaching, but I would have to know the current things, because where I was when I started is not where I could be today.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would do, it would really be, it always comes down to knowing your audience first. You can't build a business trying to convince people to buy your products.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know their need and know their desires and know their wants.
Yeah.
And so getting crystal clear on that. And everyone talks about it, but it's really hard to do. So getting support is sometimes the way to do it. If you don't have the resources, it's going to just know it's going to be a process. You're going to be continually narrowing it down or refining it down. For me, it all comes down to marketing, really. And then the habits, like optimally, I have a sheet that I use that helps me break down what I need to be working on each day based on my big pictures and my big goals.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing your audience and strategically working on your most important goals every day would be the two simple things I would say.
I like those. I like those a lot. And I'm also curious because you said that you have these 3 different pillars of your business: high performance coaching, business coaching, and then also mindset and intuition.
Yeah, within business coaching. So marketing and business systems. So I
Okay.
also look at how they've set up their business too.
Okay. So when someone comes to you, do they normally need help with all 3 of those things, or is it one? Or maybe they don't know that they need help with all 3. When someone comes to you, how do you kind of qualify them for what they're right for?
Great question. So it does vary. All of my clients are different. Sometimes they're there for the strategy and the marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and they know they've got great mindset habits, but they're like, I just can't get my business to create consistent connection with my ideal clients.
Yeah.
Others come to me and they're like, I've got great success, but I'm just overwhelmed. My business has taken over my life and I don't know how to streamline it and get it back. I don't even know. Like, a lot of people are like, how do I even double my income when I'm maxed out now?
Right.
And so it often is a combination of all 3 pieces, but a lot of it is either confidence, how they're showing up in their habits, or their marketing as well. And that's why I have to work on all 3. If they don't need help in one area, great. They just get the information. But it all comes together, and it's really the mindset too. So underlying beliefs. Do you have the underlying belief? I'm from 2 generations of immigrants. So immigrants often believe, oh, when we work really hard, we'll see success. I lived that. I worked really hard. I saw success. It wasn't until I was able to start doing the mindset work and release that and be like, I can make more money with greater ease and things like that, that I started to see the results. I spent 2 years working on my mindset by myself with my theta healing training.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. At what point in your business did you realize that your mindset is something that you needed to work on? Or like, how long were you working these 80 hours weeks before you were like, oh my God, get me out of here?
It's happened a couple times. The first time I was like, because every time you get to a new level, you break past some of those mindset beliefs, you get to a new level, but then you start to relive some of the game because you have to reclear them. So my first time was that second year in business. I was hitting 80-hour weeks, the 10K months. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I didn't trust myself. I merged with a business partner. I'd hired someone. In the end, that wasn't the best decision for me. So a couple of years later, I split and went off on my own, got some normalcy again. And then we grew to 20 and 30K months. And then again, I was dealing with new challenges. I had employees and I was maintaining and project management. And so I had to, again, figure out the best way to implement these steps at this new process. So you'll often find that as your business grows, you're like, but I thought I already fixed this. I was doing great. And now I've gotten to a new level and I'm reliving these same challenges that I had before. And so it happened a couple times, but each time then I could fall back on, well, I've already learned this. And so I would say I was working with different coaches too. So I would hire different coaches and they would help me get to the next level. But the mindset work really made a difference probably when I really dove into my own personal development. I got certified in Theta Healing, and I've now done 4 different certifications in that because I love it for shifting beliefs, and then did the intuitive success coaching. So it took me, I was a little slow learner. It took me like 8 years.
That's okay. I mean, it's all a process and you continue to learn and adapt as you go through life and business and all these different areas. What is Theta Healing? I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
It's not very well known. It can be used for physical healing and energy, and it's being a witness to using creator or God's own energy to work with people. So I use it in my business with muscle testing. So we find beliefs. You can muscle test and find your subconscious beliefs because your subconscious and your body are connected. So we know that with data tangibly, here's your beliefs. And then I can use it, or I guess I'm expanding. I also use EFT and NLP within my practice as well. So it's witnessing in different ways. It's finding key core beliefs and releasing them so that a new positive belief can be brought in.
Very cool. Do you work with your clients in person or all virtually?
Currently all virtually. I do live in a small town. I have worked with clients in person in the past, but for the most part, even when I work with coaches, it's virtual. So
yeah,
it's great. You can work with anyone from anywhere.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm the same way. I was just curious for like the muscle testing and things like that. Do you talk them through the process and kind of have them explain to you what they're feeling through that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so each coaching session is different. Like this week, one of my clients, as humans, but especially as women, our personal life affects our business life too. And some personal stuff that came up for her. And this has happened in the past with clients too. And so we spent the session just muscle testing, digging down, finding her core beliefs and releasing them. And so at the end of the session, we cleared up some big beliefs that were holding her back. And it was all virtual. So it's just, I can teach everything that I need to virtually and get the information that I need.
That's awesome that someone can come to you for help with their business or some systems or their marketing and then also get this mindset help. So that's great that you've gone through all of these experiences in your life that you can now help people firsthand with all these different areas that you needed help with along the way and have sharpened on your own.
Yeah, pretty much everything that I teach now is like, I wish I'd had this when I was a newer business owner. I wish I'd had this when I was growing and expanding.
No, that's awesome. That's really great. And you said that you've been in business for a while with all of your different businesses. So I really love talking to people who have been business owners since before like social media marketing was big and since before there was so many coaches, and I think there was a different mentality back then that really helps a lot of people now with growing and scaling and maintaining.
I was a web designer before WordPress. I had to write all the website code. I was in SEO when it was bottom level, like first coming out as well. Like at one point, it was just overwhelming how quickly technology was changing and the things you need to know in business.
For sure. For sure. It really is. I've been in business for 3 years now, which is not a very long time. And there's still things that I'm changing. Just this week, I'm like, okay, I need to automate a ton of things. And so I guess if I try to do all of this when I first started, I would have been so overwhelmed. So I am glad that I did the most important things and set up most of the systems. And then now that I'm scaling in a different way, I'm like, okay, let me figure this out. And I'm sure there'll be things year 5, year 10 that I'm like, I can't believe I never did this before, but let's do it now.
Another thing to be aware of is you're probably going to shift in your business and elevate and grow. Like I found that I would hit a level of success. And then I'm like, okay, I got my business. I've got all the recurring net revenue I want. I'm bored. I need to get to the next level. I need to be providing the next level of service now. And so
Totally.
there will be those changes and shifts in your business too. As you realize or you grow yourself and you're like, I have so many more skills I can offer at a deeper level.
Yeah, and I think that's so exciting. I really do. I think that it's exciting to see how whatever you are learning now can come into your business later.
Yeah. And it's what you're learning will probably, I talk to a lot of business owners and they're like, I got started in this business because this happened to me.
Yeah,
And so it's from personal experience that often creates those shifts in your path. And you don't have to be like, oh, well, I started this business, I'm stuck in it the rest of my life. You can decide, you know what? I don't really enjoy this business. You know what? Maybe I enjoyed being an employee more, or maybe I didn't build this business right and I need to do something different. And you're allowed to change and shift too.
exactly. Oh, I love that. Well, Alyssa, is there anything else you want to talk about today? We've talked about such great things already.
I would say just going back to trusting your intuition and trusting yourself. So a quick way, your intuition is like a game. Your intuition enjoys playing games and doing fun things. So if you know that you're intuitive, but you don't listen to it, or you're like, I'm not intuitive, how do I find my intuition? Just start asking little questions. Like when you're going for a walk, should I go left or right? What feels right? What feels good? Like actively ask your intuition just little questions. Should I take a nap or should I go for a walk? Should I do this or should I do that? Should I eat this food or that food? And just sort of learn how to connect your intuition and get that insight and feedback. As you get more activated, you'll get an idea and you're like, oh, that's my intuition. But maybe in the beginning, you just need to actively connect with it and ask it things.
Yeah, that's great advice. I guess I've always been intuitive, so I can't imagine what it would be like not to have this like nagging voice in my head telling me not to do something or to do something. So that's great advice for anyone who maybe needs to practice it more. But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't always listen to it. Do you have advice for listening to it?
That comes from experience when you're like, oh, well, that didn't work out well. So it can be like, and when it's in business, should I respond to this email now? Or should I, like sometimes you get upset clients. Should you respond right away or should you wait until you calm down?
Mm-hmm.
And really, when you don't listen to it, you have to be aware that you didn't listen to it too. So there's an awareness. If you didn't even notice that you ignored it, you're never going to learn from it. So you can be like, oh, I knew I shouldn't have taken on this client, but I did because I needed the money. Next time, I'm going to sit with a potential client and ask my intuition, should I work with them?
Yeah.
You have to have that awareness of, okay, I didn't listen to my intuition. This didn't go the way I wanted it to. Next time in this situation, I will ask it.
Yeah. Just like always learning and taking note of, yeah, that happens to me a lot where I'm like, wow, I knew this wasn't going to be great and
Yeah.
wish I could go back in time.
Yeah. And we're all going to make mistakes too. So give yourself grace. I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I had to learn how to give myself grace for the mistakes when I'm like, I should be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I feel like you're such a wealth of knowledge. You've been in business so long and have so many different parts of your business. So for anyone who's interested in connecting with you to work with you, what are the best ways that they can work with you and who do you work with?
So I try to be accessible. If anyone's got questions, they're free to reach out to me on my website is alyssawilliamson.com. I've got a free training on how to elevate your business beyond those 10K to 20K months.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can find me on Instagram, AlyssaWilliamson_coach. And you can DM me. Like, I love conversation. If you're just like, I'm putting tons of content out there, look at the content and message me. You're like, hey, I listened to this podcast with Hayleigh and I would love to chat more. I'm there for you.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, I'll put all of those in the show notes. And Alyssa, the way that I start to wrap up all of my podcast episodes is by asking the guest 3 action steps that the audience can take away from this episode with to start doing in their life, business, whatever action steps they can start with. What would you challenge them to do?
So this is often the hardest one for business owners, is having a morning and a nighttime routine and valuing sleep. So I was a night owl and an early bird. I would work till 12, 1 a.m. and then I'd get up at like 6 a.m. I spent 3 months of 4 hours straight. Value sleep first. So one, make sleep a priority. Find a way to get 8 hours of sleep a night. That means having a nighttime routine. And then what does your morning routine look like? So in the morning, how do you prioritize your day? If you just head into your day and all the tasks are floating around your head, you're not going to get anything done. Prioritize what are 3 things you need to get done that day. So sleep, have a nighttime routine to prepare for the next day, and then have that morning routine. So nothing else we talked about, but that's key, foundational to anything else you can do in having a successful business.
Yeah. And if someone needs more help with these, can they message you and ask you some questions?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Because I think that I'm big on sleep. I will never let my business get in the way of my sleep. But I think the routines are definitely like a challenge for a lot of people too. And so that's great. And I've loved how we talked about so many different topics in this episode that all tie to business and mindset. So I think that there's a lot of value in this. And I really appreciate you just being open and sharing with the audience and me about your journey.
Thank you. This has been fun. I love talking about all of these topics. So it was so fun talking with you about it.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and